This video is sponsored by Dreamverse. Dreamverse is the world's first NFT and music festival. It is being held on the 4th of November at Terminal 5 in New York. It is a physical event. Really cool stuff happening. In particular, it is the first time that Blankos, the first 5,000 days NFT, will be showcased. This is the most expensive NFT in the world at $69 million. There's a whole bunch of art stuff going on, including AR and VR experiences. That's from 12 to 4 p.m. And then there is the Dreamverse party from 8 to 1 a.m. Headlined by Alesso, various other artists there as well. Of course, the tickets are NFTs designed by a lot of money. You can buy them now. You get this sepia version, and when you turn up and get them scanned, you get this fully colourful version of the ticket itself, a valuable NFT. So check it all out. It's happening the 4th of November in New York. Check it out at dreamverse.life. Thanks for the sponsorship. Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World with me, John Jordan. And another graph about Blankos block party. So I'm pretty interested in this project. It's a fairly sort of lightweight blockchain game in the sense that the only bit that is blockchain at the moment, at least, is these Blanko NFTs. So they're these in-game characters. There's about 60 of them so far being released. There's new ones released pretty much every couple of weeks. And you can buy them and use them in the game if you want to, or you can trade them on the marketplace. So what I'm looking at here is the return on investment of Blankos, of these NFT characters, really over the last, sort of 6 months or so. And basically what's been happening during this time is the marketplace has been live, but it's been live only for sort of certain users. So it started out being a invite-only marketplace. So the only people who could get on there were sort of people who had been active in playing Blankos, probably a few thousand, maybe 10,000 people, something like that, I'm guessing. And those people could buy and sell Blankos. So you could, the Blankos you'd already bought, you could sell, and you could go and sort of buy new ones if you didn't have them. And the big thing about Blankos really is getting serial numbers. So they're serial numbered, obviously 1 to whatever the mint is. And the lower the serial number, the more they're worth. So with this data, what I'm looking at is what we call the floor price. So here, what I'm looking at is the cheapest Blanko you can buy, which is normally would be one of the highest serial numbers. So if there was 1,000 Blankos in a set, number 1 would obviously be the most expensive, and number 1,000 would sort of be the cheapest. So that's sort of the range we're looking at here. What we can see is during this period here, where only sort of the hardcore Blankos people were buying and selling, prices sort of went up and down, but within a range sort of 100% to 200%. So obviously within this, we can go and have a look at a bit more granular data. This is an average across all the Blankos that are available. There's some different sort of trends for specific Blankos. This is the average. So we can see, so not a lot really happens until the start of August. So the start of August, what happens is the marketplace is made open to a lot more people, but they can only buy Blankos. So at this point here, effectively we can say is the entire Blankos community is allowed to buy Blankos, but they can't sell them because obviously there's sort of issues around people sort of cashing out. So there's anti-money laundering, all that sort of stuff. Putting money in is fine, taking money out not fine. So kind of what we see is kind of what we'd expect from basic economics is if all you can do is buy, then people are buying, and if you're buying, the price is going to go up because there's no more supply sort of thing, or but there's going to be more demand, more people trying to buy than there is supply to sort of refill what's being sold. So we can actually see it goes up to over 500% during this time. And again, I will point out, this is people buying at floor prices, but people also sort of buying these low serial numbers. So we're not really looking at that, but basically goes up to 500%. And now we can see this massive decline. So it almost comes sort of back to where we started. So what's happened here? So over the last kind of few days is basically now everyone is allowed to buy and sell. So basically you sort of here we had a restricted marketplace because it was restricted in terms of number of users, not many people trading. Here we have restrictions because lots of people can come in, but they can only buy. Clearly the price goes up. Now we're having this situation where all those people who've been buying can now start selling and sort of earning their money back, or trying to sort of kind of maybe sell the ones they bought, or so we have much more supply than demand. So demand peaks here. in the current sort of audience for Blankos, and then supply. Suddenly there's loads of supply, and particularly here, if you want to sell a Blanko, unless you really know what you're doing and you're trying to sell a specific kind of serial number. But basically, if the cheapest Blanko, say I want to sell Billy Bones, one of the most famous ones. If I want to sell Billy Bones and the cheapest Billy Bones is $50, and I've just got a rubbish serial number, like a very high serial number, the only way I can sell that is by selling it for $49. So basically, what happens here is people have been trying to sell, and particularly at the sort of the lower end of pricing. All you do is you just go $1 down on the price that's already existing. So this is sort of forcing the floor price down. Which is not to say there's not other sort of dynamics happening around the price of these sort of rarer ones. And also there is a kind of an interesting sort of scale between what's going on for the different Blankos as well. Some of them are sort of rarer than others in terms of how many are out there. So this looks like sort of a bad sort of thing. It's not bad. It's just this is how economics works. This is sort of what, I'm not blowing my trumpet, but this is sort of what you'd expect from classic economics. This is sort of what I expected. But let's go and have a look in a bit more detail at some numbers on the specific Blankos, because that shows a slightly more nuanced picture. Okay, so here's my massive sheet of Blankos, and we can see here, this is basically every day since mid-June. I basically just noted down the floor price for these things. So there's a bit of sort of kind of a quantumization, I suppose, in exactly when I took these sort of prices, but for what we're trying to do, it's kind of fine. But I'm not doing this in any complicated sort of scraping the marketplace and getting real-time value. So there may be just some sort of sort of noise in the data around just how I've taken it. But basically what we can see here is these are the different, let's get rid of those. These are these different Blankos. So these are the names of the different Blankos here. And we can see there are, let's have a look. What am I counting here? 6. Yeah, so we can see there are currently 59 Blankos. There's actually 2 that are going to be launched that aren't now yet. So there's technically 57 Blankos. But what we can see here is I've put in some numbers. So we can see here the return on investment if you bought a Blanko at the price where it was offered in the store and then sold it at the floor price. So this is, I've done, so we can just kind of look here, sort the sheet. So we can see here, if you just done the basic thing and bought a Blanko at the price it was launched at in the store, and then compared that to the floor price, apart from this one here, Pug Life, it's sold for $50 and is currently $49. Every other Blanko NFT here you would have made money on, or effectively if you had sold it. So we can see here actually, the best Blanko in terms of return on investment so far is Stupid Cupid, which you could have bought for $10 back in 2020, and now it's currently selling. Cheapest one is $99, so we've got 891% increase there. So that's pretty good. So despite what we sort of saw in terms of that ROI graph, if you looked at the ROI back when these things were launched, they pretty much all done fairly well. So the ROI graph I was looking at was actually the price on the marketplace at the time. So it's a slightly different thing. This is if you bought at the price in which they were sold in the store. So these are the last 2 to go live. These ones went live last week at $250. So one of them is still the cheapest one is $250, and one of them is $259. So you would have made like 6% even on that. And these ones that are sort of have a lower ROI are fairly new ones. So Clown was released a couple of weeks ago. Atom again was. Probably about 6 weeks ago, maybe. But even there, they were $10 when you bought them, and the cheapest one now $16. So it's not bad in a couple of months. And I say some of these ones down here, it's kind of fairly large number where you're getting over sort of 500% return on those. So obviously not investment advice. The other thing to look at is there's another kind of return on investment kind of one graph here. Let me just pull that one up. So here, I'm looking at a different sort of time frame. So I'm looking at the time when if you look down here, B. So here we have BH, the BH column. So the BH column is when you can see here from this note, access to all accounts was opened, although selling was restricted to certain geographies. So that was kind of when everyone could buy, but not everyone could sell. So this is sort of looking at a sort of more different sort of time frame. And we can see here actually that there is a little bit of difference here. So because obviously these ones, I'm looking at the price in the marketplace at that point at which more people could come in and start spending. So a few more of these. For various reasons, I wouldn't really kind of comment particularly on why these ones have been the case. But some of these, the floor price has actually gone down fairly significantly. So this one's down 50%. Now, one of the reasons for these ones is these are very sort of old Blankos, and they have very sort of generally quite small supplies. So they're quite so people were putting them on sale for a lot of money and too much money. No one was buying them. So that's sort of why some of these have I mean, something like this, you know, Billy Sixbones. I don't think anyone's bought one. That's $5.5 million. So these are quite sort of speculative prices they were put at. So maybe it's not a surprise that we've seen the sort of the floor price drop. But again, if we come down here, so the best sort of ROI on this one is Gorilla Samurai. So he's up 500%, Menace up 400%. So even if you're looking at a sort of smaller time scale, and even if you're buying those Blankos on the marketplace, and even as we've seen, there's been this big sort of drop off happening over the last kind of few days. So we can see here on the 29th of September, the cheapest Gorilla Samurai was $170, and now as everyone's been able to buy and sell, effectively as more people have been able to sell, we can see the price has dropped to $122. But that's still up 510% compared to what it was before the marketplace was opened. So there is a lot of sort of granularity here, and you have to sort of look at these headline figures. You have to look in and see exactly, you know, what's going on here, and most of these are still in positive territory. And I do kind of think this is interesting in general for blockchain projects, not particularly for Blankos, but when you put a marketplace in place, as long as you sort of have an increasing audience, as long as you have sort of new people coming into the marketplace and start trading, you generally across the board you will see the price of things going up, and the price of certain things will go up, you know, a lot more than average. So there'll be an average sort of price here. You can see some of these are around sort of 10-20%, some of these are 0. But the sort of audience will find particular things that for some reason, maybe aesthetically, or these ones are fairly low supply. So we can see here that this is the supply column here says how many of these have been minted. So there's only 2,000 Gorilla Samurais, which is fairly small compared to some of the other ones. There's 5,000 multi-Blankos and 2,800 Xantars. So those ones tend to have different price velocity. So anyway, lots of numbers again. But if you want to understand NFTs, you really have to spend a bit of time digging into this sort of stuff. I think, but even if you don't spend a lot of time digging into it, you can kind of see actually Blankos is quite interesting in the sense that you know, there is this generally this thing that if you sort of get into a project early enough, and even here buying at the kind of the store price and getting a high serial number Blanko, even there, you know, the kind of ROI is quite good. Obviously, not investment advice. Never spend more money than you can afford, and I only spend in projects that I think are interesting and yeah, that sort of stuff. Anyway, some numbers. I like numbers. Blockchain, really, if you're going to be in the blockchain space, you have to really spend a bit of time, I think, with numbers, and especially when you're comparing different projects to each other. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is Blockchain Gaming World, where we do spend our time investigating different projects, and hopefully you find the videos interesting. Thanks for watching this one, and see you again soon.